you remember how easygoing the Aquarius new moon was? Well, don't expect anything similar from this Leo full moon, because this peak lunation is anything but easygoing. But before we get into all of that, let me introduce myself. If you are new here, welcome. I'm Camille, otherwise known as Cosmic Cannibal, and I am your go-to astrologer, author, cosmic translator for all things zodiac signs, planets, transits, horoscopes, full moons, new moons, you name it. I do ask that maybe you give this video a like, share it with your other astrology loving friends, and subscribe to my channel so you never miss the next Astro Insight, because I promise you there are more on the horizon. That said, let's get back to the full moon, yeah? Taking place on February 12th, the 2025 Leo full moon is roaring loudly about the release, fruition, or shedding of a goal, promise, project, or intention from 6 months prior. And I say roaring loudly because A, a full moon in Leo is anything but quiet, as the fixed fire sign moon must boldly express its emotions for all to see and hear, and B, the lunar lion is getting zapped by Uranus, astrology's renegade revolutionist, which would make even the quietest big cat howl at full volume. All that said, I have the 5 things you need to know about the 2025 Leo full moon. So the first thing you need to know about this full moon in Leo is just the full moon in Leo itself, the Leo full moon. Full moons mark peak moments in the lunar cycle, and they correspond to a culmination and or release. I said that already. And it's things are usually swelling in importance in the days leading up to a full moon. Usually on the full moon itself, we don't feel the thing, or the thing doesn't happen, but in those days leading up to it, that's when the moon is like, it's swollen and swelling and, as we call, waxing. And so that's when we really feel it emotionally, because the moon is the celestial body of the emotions. Now, symbolically, we release things on full moons. At least that's how you want to work with these lunations. Release can be a really broad term. So on that same symbolic level, it can mean letting go of a feeling or a habit, a personal relationship, an old dream, a career, whatever. More literally, a full moon release can also mean launching something out into the world. So you can use full moons to debut something, to announce something, or to publicize something. And actually, a full moon in Leo, this full moon in Leo, is especially good for publicity and, putting a little bit of a shock, awe, and attention-grabbing headline into your own newsletter or public sphere. And that's because Leo loves the spotlight. And as I've said, full moons they're points of culmination, and they're basically cosmic spotlights. So February 12th is a 1-2 punch for getting and attracting attention, but also for paying attention. And I'll explain more of what I mean by that in a moment. So Leo is the sign of creative spark, of attention-grabbing antics, of entertainment and PR and showmanship and flair. It's also a sign of leadership, courage, confidence, willpower, and star power. So making something known to your world, your community, or even to yourself is a really great way to work with this full moon in Leo. Doing or launching something bold, maybe a little provocative or shocking, also great idea. But in terms of release, I think the 2025 Leo full moon is a fabulous full moon, fabulous day to liberate yourself from the habits, negative thoughts, relationships, or work that is interfering with your ability to lead with courage and confidence. Again, full moons are like flashlights, and this full moon is shedding a big, bright, jolting light on the ways in which you feel blocked or stuck, and how that is impeding your ability to really show up and shine. Now, you might have noticed my use of the words jolt, liberate, shock. These aren't typical Leo keywords, but they are terms associated with Uranus, which brings us to number 2. The second thing you need to know about the Leo full moon is the square it makes to Uranus. We can call it Uranus, Uranus. I don't care how you pronounce it, but we know that Uranus only recently stationed direct in Taurus on January 30th, so it has ended its 6-month slowdown. It's still in its post-retrograde shadow phase, which means it's just moving through the degrees it stationed retrograde in and moved retrograde through. But Uranus has already begun its eruption of change. We've seen this play out, especially governmentally. You know, Elon Musk now has access to Americans' sensitive financial and personal information, including your social security number. Why? I don't know. He's like a tech figure. Government is a system. It's a foundation. Uranus is planet of shakeups and technology. And it's like, okay, that's kind of how this astrology is landing. Then there was like the big, 25% tariff threat that shocked the other countries in the stock market. I could go on about how Uranus direct has been landing, but I won't. Because with Uranus in the mix of this full moon, there's a stronger than normal desire to break up with, break out of, or break free from something. Remember, Uranus is the planet of unexpected shakeups and much needed wake-ups. It is a disruptor. It is a wild card. It's a groundbreaker. It's a liberator. And a liberator of anything that's stale, stodgy, or outdated. So Uranus shocks and electrifies you with insight, ideas, or just a wild hair up your ass to do something, anything different. This doesn't mean you'll suddenly have a soap opera worthy breakup or get dramatically fired from your job on February 12th. At least I hope it doesn't. Uranus is urging you to shake up and liberate yourself from all the outdated habits, stale thinking patterns, or personal ruts, preventing you from shining brightly. So squares in astrology, the square aspect, it's a 90-degree aspect, and it creates friction and tension, but also a hell of a lot of dynamic energy, which makes this full moon somewhat of a restless one. It might feel like maybe there's a little bit of tension in the air, or tension takes us into the full moon. We have a tense couple of days, Monday, Tuesday. And your desire to express yourself or express your feelings, which is what the Leo full moon wants, it might clash with the need for stability. So if you've been feeling stuck, or you feel like things aren't moving along, or you don't even know where you're going, or there's something that you've been wanting to do, but you're kind of afraid of like making that change, this energy, Uranus squaring the full moon, might just be the jolt you need to do it, to break free, to like shake out of the rut. Just expect the unexpected, because Uranus squaring this full moon could bring sudden changes or disruptions that force you to adapt quickly. I think these disruptions will probably be in the form of a political headline, a news headline, something that's like, wait, what happened? Which kind of feels like that's happening every day, but maybe it has something more to do with stock market or technology or something. But you can still be a bit of a disruptor, because Uranus squaring the full moon says, I want to do something that is loud, jarring, totally unexpected, if only to get a reaction. Because Leo loves a good audience, loves to perform, and Uranus just likes to disrupt, likes to make some noise. So again, February 12th, great day to launch your art podcast or your, comedy YouTube channel that you've been thinking about, but you're afraid of how people are going to react to it. Especially if you've been hiding any sort of weird, maybe provocative, or just disruptive side hustle, you're going to do it. That like February 12th, put it out there. And when I say disrupt or disrupt your community, I mean like you're shaking out of your norms. So what people know you as right now, what people know you doing, what people know you professionally, I'm thinking primarily of Leo risings here. The Leo full moon is the day to be like, well, guess what? I'm not just a writer, I am also a basketball player or something of that nature. So Uranus is zapping you awake, and it's electrifying your desire to do something daring and something daringly different. Now, this totally fits within the confines of Aquarius season. The full moon in Leo means the moon in Leo is opposing the sun in Aquarius. And Aquarius is about all things weird and free and original and quirky. But this full moon is also opposing Mercury in Aquarius. So that's the third thing you need to know about this full moon. It's opposition to Mercury in Aquarius. Opposition aspects create tension and a need for balance. They create a stretched feeling. The planets involved need a little bit of what the other one has to offer. And because this particular opposition involves two fixed signs, there's a little bit of rigidity, stubbornness getting in the way of that balance, where it's like, well, I don't want to do that, or I don't need to do things that way. I need to do it this way. The full moon in Leo wants to feel and express its feelings loudly, boldly, and preferably in front of a live studio audience. Mercury in Aquarius, however, wants to think and think and think, and then use more logic to think and not use emotions or passions, because Mercury in Aquarius is all about dispassionate analysis. Mercury is also a translator. So Mercury is translating something about the square going on between Uranus and the full moon. And it adds another layer of intensity and a little bit of tension into the mix. We know that full moons are already emotionally heightened days. All we want to do is yell, sob, or punch something. At least I do. And when you add an opposition from Mercury, the planet of logical thinking and dispassionate analysis, it might feel like somebody around you, maybe it's your internal critic or someone outside of your social circle, someone on social media, is like, why are you being like so dramatic? Why do you want the spotlight so badly? Why can't you just keep it together? It's just a little judgy, you know? Aquarius is tolerant, but it doesn't like Leo's ego-driven desires, and it isn't afraid to make it known. So if you're feeling emotionally amped near the full moon, and you want to express yourself, you kind of might feel like you want to pick a fight. You also might feel like you just want to put your feelings on display. Someone might come in to correct you or judge you, or, you know, they're kind of pointing to the fact that you're being a little bit dramatic, which, okay, whatever, like, let them be the asshole, you know? I'm gonna have my freak out. Not my freak off. I'm not P. Diddy. I mean my freak out. On the bright side, Mercury is moving away from its clarifying cazimi on February 9th, which is when Mercury aligned with the sun in Aquarius and hopefully brought out or led to some sort of scientific breakthrough or like an aha moment. I'm thinking personally, not like, you know, suddenly we know how to cure cancer. I wish, but maybe you got some sort of download. Maybe that was through a TikTok or a TED Talk, and it's something about what you need to think or plan differently, or how you need to innovate to achieve your dream or your goal or whatever it is that you are trying to grow and do. Mercury helps translate more of that aha, third eye opening intellectual clarity. It also increases the need for and the likelihood of communication, because Mercury is the planet of communications, the planet of thinking and translation. So you could receive news about a job. Maybe you decide to apply for a job. You reach out about a job. You might launch a podcast. You might launch a newsletter. You might have a revelatory conversation about the state of the world and feel compelled to enact change and like, I'm going to call my senator. Whatever it is, thinking, planning, talking, and brainstorming will be in the mix. Or at least it should be. Now, this takes us to the fourth thing you need to know about this Leo full moon, and that's the fixed T-square. So if you don't know what a fixed T-square is, don't worry. It simply means that the sun, the moon, Mercury, and Uranus, which are all in what we call fixed signs, Aquarius, Taurus, Leo, they're all butting heads. So the Mercury cazimi on February 9th, which also squares Uranus and Taurus, that carries you into this full moon. So both Mercury and Uranus are clashing with one another, and they're clashing with the full moon too, which creates more of that tension, more of that restlessness, and feeling, again, stretched, but maybe also amped up. So it's a lot. This full moon is a lot. It's a little wild too. Now, a T-square is an aspect pattern between 3 or more planets. It involves an opposition, which is tension, between planets that is also squared, frustration, by another planet. So whether it's in the sky or in your birth chart, T-squares create this pressurized tension. There's a really strong need to act, a yearning to do something with all that energy. It feels a little bit like pressure cooker, where there's this pressurized tension. You want to act, you want to do something with that energy. But there's also a yearning for balance that is often really challenging to achieve. The way you resolve that tension involves looking at the planet that squares the opposition. So for us, we have the moon opposing the sun and Mercury, and it's being squared by Uranus. So Uranus is the focal point of this T-square, and it's that pressure release valve. We have all this stuff going on, but the key theme here revolves around Uranus. Uranus is the focal point of the T-square. It's the point of release. It's the valve. It's the thing we want to look to turn it on, to be like, oh, this is where I can concentrate all this restless, frenetic, wild energy. So you need to look at the Taurus part of your chart. That's where Uranus is. And that's how you'll know how best to release the frenzied, frenetic, wild, tense, restless feelings that are likely to kind of be building near this full moon. But remember that the full moon wants you to release something that will help you feel more confident or courageous and help you lead with more intentional passion, or lead with more confidence and courage, or do something that feels bold, daring, dramatic, attention grabbing. What you are releasing has to do with the Taurus thing that you need to innovate, reinvent, or shake up. If you're a Leo rising, that's going to be something to do with your career, your professional life, your industry. Maybe it means you're applying for a job in a different industry. Maybe it means that you are like, I am a 9-to-5 marketer, but guess what? I'm also this thing professionally. I'm ready to announce myself as an astrologer, or I just built this app, or I wrote this book, something like that. So it's something to do with the thing that you need to innovate, reinvent, or shake up. And it might be, or it might mean that you do something a little wild in this part of your life, something that feels fresh or more authentic to you and who it is that you want to be. So Mercury and the Sun in Aquarius are going to help bring you clarity if you listen to yourself. So that's where I say you need to pay attention to your feelings on this full moon and what they are revealing. The Leo part of your chart really wants to roar, really wants to get attention, and it wants you to get attention for the areas of life that house rules. You just have to think of more innovative ways that you can satisfy that need. Just don't be surprised if your attempts to shine are maybe met with just a little bit of resistance from those who prefer the status quo. Because squares can also create obstacles, and they can create a little bit of external friction. They are Mars aspects, so they're Martian in nature, so they provoke, they poke and prod at you until you do something, until you act. Hopefully you act in a constructive way. You don't want to overreact. You don't want to snap at someone. Instead, channel this sort of rebellious, wild energy into creative solutions that shake up your routine in a positive way. That brings us to the fifth, and perhaps the most important thing you need to know about the Leo full moon. You are not at the mercy of it. So the way that I approach astrology is looking at it as a place for timing things. The things are happening in the sky. They're not necessarily happening to us. Maybe they're happening for us. They're mirroring what's going on. They're presenting ways for us to understand things contextually. But they are not here to just run your life, and they don't take away your free will. So I'm not here saying that the Leo full moon is going to just bring so much drama and so much restlessness and all this stuff. I've given you tips for how you can work with this lunation, for how you can channel what energy is there proactively, so you can actually work with the energy and be like, okay, I'm gonna launch the thing, or I'm gonna work on that thing, or I'm gonna do something daring and different. The point is, use it to your advantage. Try not to stutter that out. The point is, you want to use this full moon to your advantage, knowing that the full moon is not here to just do something to you. I'm trying to help people break out of that mindset of like, well, the astrology is just ruining my life, or things aren't happening for me. Where are we taking action? What are we doing to actually enact the changes that we want to make? And that is a big theme for this full moon as well, because Uranus is like, hey, well, if you want to make the changes, you got to make the changes. So maybe that means you apply for a different job in a different industry. Maybe you launch your Freaky Stories podcast or political satire newsletter, whatever it is that is bold and weird and uniquely you. That's what this full moon is all about. It's about putting that on display, putting it out there. You're working with this sort of wild, frenetic, energetic astrology in a constructive, mindful way, knowing that, all right, we might feel a little jittered or we might feel a little tense, but how can we channel that tension into a creative project so that we're not just snapping at one another? Where can we channel that energy, pour that creative spark so that you can shine bigger and brighter and more boldly? Because that's what it's all about. So there you have it, my 5 things you need to know about the 2025 Leo full moon. If you want your in-depth Leo full moon horoscope, head on over to my Substack, cosmiccannibal.substack.com. I will have full moon horoscopes for all of the signs. You can also drop your rising sign in the comments, and I'll tell you where this full moon is landing for you and how you can work with it. Otherwise, be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, share it with the world, and follow me on other social media platforms at Cosmic Cannibal Camille. And if you want to dive further into your birth chart, you can check out my slew of readings on my website. cosmiccannibal.com. Otherwise, I think that's enough self-promotion for this video. See you on the flip side, and happy full moon.